I was halfway across the stage when the sharp scrape of a chair echoed behind me, cracking the silence like a whip. At my graduation, my sister Ariana rose from her seat and pointed at me, her gaze slicing through the crowd as if she were delivering judgment. She cheated her way through college, she declared, voice cold and public, leaving no room for doubt. The auditorium froze. My parents' faces were unreadable, like statues caught in mid-breath. My brother wasn't there, just her, burning for attention. I kept walking, holding together. Years of hard work with nothing but determination and every ounce of control I could summon. Before I tell you what happened after I reached the podium, let me ask you, where are you listening from? And if you were in my shoes, how would you have reacted? I didn't grow up expecting Ariana to turn against me. For most of our childhood, I chased the light she radiated. She was effortlessly magnetic, always the center of attention at family dinners in Portland. Relatives leaned in to hear her stories, while I sat quietly beside her, nodding, learning to shrink myself so she could shine. But everything changed when I stopped following and started carving my own path. By junior year, my grades surpassed hers. Teachers began noticing me. A scholarship letter arrived with my name on it, and her smile at my achievement tasted more like envy than pride. College widened the gap between us. I left with a duffel bag and a stack of psychology textbooks. She stayed behind after abandoning her graduate program. I didn't think it mattered at first. Different paths, different timing. But the first cracks appeared when my scholarship refund came up short. A small, unexplained discrepancy, then vague responses from the financial aid office. Questions to my parents were met with looks too quick to read, too deliberate to ignore. Then came the emails. Complaints I hadn't filed, meetings I'd never canceled, accusations I couldn't trace. Small at first, each one was easy to dismiss. The chaos of student life a convenient scapegoat. But they added up, like tiny weights pressing on my shoulders until I felt everyone around me watching, hesitant, as if I were some fragile reflection in a shattered mirror. Lena, my roommate, noticed before I spoke. "You're checking your phone like you're waiting for bad news," she whispered one night. I didn't know how to explain that it wasn't a single piece of bad news. I awaited. It was the pattern emerging, the invisible hand manipulating my life. I kept hoping it wasn't Ariana, the sister who braided my hair, who whispered encouragement before every school day, couldn't possibly be orchestrating this. But hope has a way of blinding you right before the final strike. And I didn't realize that strike would land on the day I had no defense. The months leading up to graduation felt like moving through a room where someone dimmed the lights, just enough to disorient me. Never fully plunging me into darkness, but enough to make me question every shadow. Every time I thought the worst had passed, a new problem appeared. Scholarship payments shifted again. Forms I had submitted vanished from the system. My campus account locked me out, citing suspicious activity. Professor Hale was next. He called me into his office with the careful, measured calm of someone delivering bad news. A complaint came in, he said, hands folded. "Someone claims you plagiarized parts of your behavioral analysis report." My stomach dropped. That report had consumed weeks of my life. Late nights, cold meals, endless corrections. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but he raised a hand. "I don't believe it. I'm telling you so you can prepare." Prepare for what? A war I didn't start. Whispers followed me in the hall. Evan, a freshman classmate, studied me with quiet scrutiny. A girl in my lab group avoided my gaze. Even Lena, my roommate who trusted me instinctively, said, "You don't think someone's targeting you, right?" I nodded, knowing the truth but refusing to say it aloud. The turning point came with a fake email canceling a critical capstone review meeting. The phrasing wasn't mine, the signature wasn't mine, but the damage was real. I sat in our dim studio apartment, scrolling through old memories of Ariana, rewinding every moment that hinted at tension, envy, or rivalry. The backhanded remarks, the subtle dismissals, the comparisons, everything clicked. This wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate. That weekend, I drove home. Dad was in the backyard, watering hydrangeas like the world wasn't on fire around me. "Has Ariana ever said something about school?" "About me?" I asked. He paused, then admitted quietly that she had, claiming I received everything too easily. It was a fragment of confirmation, small but enough to fuel my resolve. Back on campus, I refused to wait passively. I contacted Noah Vance, a tech investigator a friend recommended. Within days, he traced irregular access to my accounts. Each login, each mirrored email, each unauthorized transaction led back to my sister. The calm dread I'd carried for months finally transformed into clarity and purpose. Noah's evidence was irrefutable. Timestamps, devices, locations, all pointing to Ariana. The scholarship payments had been tampered with. Emails sent under my name were falsified. Every subtle act, every minor sabotage was intentional. The word itself, intentional, reverberated through me like a drumbeat. I couldn't breathe until I had solid proof. I drove straight to my parents' house, sitting in the driveway under the flickering porch light. Dad found me 20 minutes later, concerned. I told him part of the truth. Someone was interfering with my accounts. My scholarship, my reputation. He didn't suspect her yet. But I knew. I needed hard evidence before confronting anyone. By the end of that night, I began cataloging every anomaly Noah had uncovered. Screenshots, logs, timestamps. I was preparing, not reacting. My war was quiet, deliberate, strategic. Graduation was 2 weeks away, and for the first time in months, I felt direction instead of fear. The next 2 weeks were a strange dual existence. In one timeline, I was a normal graduating student, returning my dorm key, finishing finals, trying on my cap and gown in front of the mirror. In the other, I was quietly preparing for a confrontation that Ariana had unknowingly already lost. Every detail mattered. The envelope of evidence, the printed logs, the emails, all double-checked, triple-checked, ready to present without hesitation. Nights were restless. I reviewed everything again and again, ensuring no loose ends. Each time I closed my eyes, I pictured the auditorium in Portland, students cheering, parents fanning themselves with programs, faculty in regalia. Somewhere in that crowd, Ariana would be waiting, her eyes sharp and calculating. I imagined her scanning faces, searching for reactions, trying to find weakness. But this time there would be none. The morning of graduation, the air was crisp, the sky a flawless blue. I arrived early, navigating through the buzz of excitement and nervous laughter. Friends hugged, parents whispered congratulations, and I felt the weight of months of preparation settle into a quiet, focused calm. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. I spotted my family immediately. My mother waved too brightly, a smile that seemed to tremble at the edges. Dad hugged me tightly, lingering just a moment longer than usual, his eyes betraying concern he didn't voice. And then I saw Ariana. She wasn't dressed for a ceremony, she was dressed to dominate it. A white blazer, meticulous makeup, posture rigid and rehearsed, eyes scanning the room like a predator sizing up prey. She wasn't here to celebrate, she was here to execute. I took my seat among the honors students, feeling the subtle hum of anticipation around me. From above, the crowd looked like a single organism, moving in waves of color and sound. Dean Matthews, seated near the front, caught my eye. We had spoken the night before. He knew everything. The smallest nod he gave me was reassurance, the quiet signal that the evidence was in place, that the stage was set. The ceremony began. Music swelled, speeches rose and fell, and names were called alphabetically. My name was toward the end, giving Ariana plenty of time to make her move. And she did. The scrape of a chair, a sharp, deliberate sound, pulled the audience's attention. Ariana rose, pointing at me. She cheated through college. Her voice was sharp, slicing through conversation and applause. Heads turned, phones lifted, faces frozen mid-expression. She doesn't deserve that diploma. She shouted louder this time. She lied. Ask anyone! For a heartbeat, a wave of panic fluttered in my chest. Then it passed. I had no reason to fear her theatrics anymore. My steps down the aisle were deliberate, controlled. Each footfall measured. I ignored the whispers, the pointing fingers, the camera flashes. I knew the secret, the truth behind the chaos, and it was waiting right beneath me. Dean Matthews's expression was calm, a steady anchor in the storm. I approached the podium, lifted my chin, and leaned slightly as I accepted my diploma. It's under my seat, I whispered. The envelope labeled A19 resting discreetly in the lining of my gown. The dean's slight nod was enough. No questions, no hesitation. The silent collaboration between us spoke louder than any argument Ariana could muster. Security personnel moved subtly, positioning themselves near Ariana without making the intervention obvious. She didn't notice, too absorbed in her performance. But the tide was already turning. The audience sensed the shift. Confused glances replaced shock. Whispers of disbelief spread, not about me, but about her. "You're all blind!" she screamed, pointing again, desperation cracking through her polished exterior. She's been lying for years. But no one followed her narrative anymore. The calm, collected stance I maintained, the nod from the dean, and the quiet authority of the prepared evidence beneath my gown created a shift. Ariana had staged her own unraveling. Her voice cracked, hands trembled, control slipping through her fingers. Security guided her toward the aisle. It wasn't harsh, just the natural conclusion of her choices. The crowd watched, some in confusion, others in awe. As the reality became clear, the spectacle she had orchestrated as a weapon against me had become the very evidence of her obsession and intent. She reached the doors at the back, spinning for one last glare. "You think this is over, Jolie?" She spat, venom dripping from the words. "That little whisper makes you innocent?" I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The truth was already moving quietly, irrevocably through the systems, through the documentation, through the law. Backstage, the dean handed me the envelope I had hidden. "This is serious," he said gently. "So was what she did," I replied. Minutes later, Mira Reyes arrived, calm and professional. She reviewed the contents swiftly, logs, screenshots, statements, and transaction records, every detail pointing unmistakably toward Ariana. "She won't be able to spin this," Mira said. "Not here, not anywhere." By the next morning, the investigation was in motion. Ariana was banned from campus pending review. Professors who had previously dismissed suspicious emails came forward. Scholarship payments were traced back to her device. Noah's digital report left no room for doubt. What she had intended as a public humiliation became the strongest evidence of her malicious intent. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the adrenaline of fear. I felt free. Months of preparation, strategy, and patience had paid off. Ariana's plan crumbled not because of confrontation, but because I refused to fight on her terms. The following weeks were quieter than expected. The academic board confirmed her violations: unauthorized access, falsified emails, misdirected funds. She was officially banned, with civil action proceedings initiated. My parents struggled at first, denial, shock, but reality left them little choice. I moved into a small apartment in Corvallis soon after, simple and sunlit. I adopted a cat that immediately claimed dominance over the furniture. My days regained rhythm and peace, shaped by study, reflection, and freedom from fear. I rebuilt my life piece by piece on my own terms. The lesson I carried forward was clear. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean winning a fight. It means reclaiming space, asserting truth, and refusing to shrink. Ariana's choices had shaped my pain, but they no longer defined my future. I had built that future myself, with patience, proof, and courage. The days following graduation were quieter than the storm of the ceremony, but not empty. Ariana's absence was a constant reminder that the balance had shifted. No longer did I feel the shadow of her schemes trailing behind me. The evidence I had gathered, combined with Mira's precise handling, had ensured accountability without confrontation. The academic board's investigation moved quickly, faster than I expected. Emails, transaction records, and falsified documents were examined and confirmed. There was no ambiguity. A week later, the official notice arrived. Ariana had been banned from campus indefinitely. The scholarship office confirmed the misdirected payments had been manipulated from her device. Faculty members who had dismissed earlier irregularities came forward, corroborating the evidence. Every attempt she had made to tarnish my reputation was now her own undoing. Oddly, I didn't feel triumphant. There was no gloating, no celebration. Instead, I felt a profound relief, like exhaling after holding my breath for months. The fear, the tension, the waiting, it had finally ended. My life was mine again, rebuilt carefully, deliberately, and without compromise. I moved into a small apartment in Corvallis. Nothing fancy, but full of sunlight. A second-hand table, a few comfortable chairs, and a cat that immediately claimed dominion over the space became my new companions. Each morning, the sun poured through the windows, and I let myself breathe, uninterrupted by the manipulation and uncertainty that had dominated the past year. I studied, I walked, I organized my life around calm routines rather than crisis management. My parents had to face their own reckoning. At first, there was shock, a quiet denial, and then eventual acceptance. Dad called one evening, voice heavy with regret. "I should have seen it," he admitted. There was no blame, only recognition of the space where assumptions had allowed Ariana to operate unchecked. My mother, always protective, took time to process the breach of trust, but eventually, she too acknowledged the reality. I learned something crucial through all of this. Standing up for yourself isn't about confrontation. It's about preparation, strategy, and patience. It's about taking control of the narrative before someone else can dictate it. Ariana's choices had shaped my suffering, but they no longer held power over my future. I had reconstructed my life piece by piece, grounded in evidence, truth, and determination. Life gradually returned to a rhythm I could recognize. I spent mornings with coffee and quiet reflection, afternoons reviewing my studies, evenings taking long walks, or reading in the soft light that filtered through my apartment windows. The space that Ariana had once filled with chaos became a sanctuary of calm. One afternoon, while organizing my notes, I reflected on the strange duality of the past months. In one timeline, I had been a student, quietly managing daily responsibilities. In the other, I had been a strategist, meticulously defending myself against a hidden adversary. Both paths had merged in that final act of preparation and quiet courage on graduation day. That convergence had allowed me to step fully into the next chapter of my life. Though Ariana's actions had been destructive, they had inadvertently taught me resilience. I became aware of the importance of systems, of safeguarding oneself, and of the quiet strength that comes from acting methodically rather than reacting impulsively. My freedom, once taken for granted, was now something I actively protected. The months after graduation were not defined by revenge, but by reconstruction. I reconnected with friends without the constant anxiety of betrayal. I explored hobbies I had shelved during my tense final semester. I began volunteering, helping other students navigate scholarship processes and academic challenges, ensuring they had guidance I had once lacked. Each small act became a statement. My life would not be dictated by fear, envy, or sabotage. The legal proceedings continued in the background. Mira's involvement ensured that Ariana could not manipulate or evade accountability. When restitution claims were filed, the clarity of the evidence made negotiations straightforward. She had no avenue to dispute the facts. The law, combined with meticulous documentation, became the tool that finally leveled the playing field. Through it all, I discovered a deeper truth about family and self-protection. Love does not automatically shield you from harm, especially when someone close chooses manipulation over honesty. I learned to set boundaries firmly, to recognize patterns early, and to trust my instincts without second-guessing. The experiences that once seemed like betrayals became lessons in discernment and personal strength. As the weeks turned into months, I settled fully into my independent life. The apartment felt like home, the cat a companion that required care and attention but gave back warmth. I returned to studies with renewed focus, exploring interests without the shadow of interference. Slowly, the anxiety that had clung to every interaction dissolved, replaced by confidence grounded in preparedness and truth. Occasionally, memories of Ariana surfaced, not as triggers of fear, but as reminders of how far I had come. Each recollection reinforced the understanding that standing your ground is not about confrontation, but about maintaining integrity, evidence, and control over one's own narrative. My life, once threatened by external manipulation, was now a space of autonomy and clarity. Looking back, the lessons were profound. I had learned that resilience is built not in moments of applause or recognition, but in the quiet preparation for challenges that others hope to hide. I had learned that evidence, patience, and calm resolve could dismantle schemes without ever stooping to their level. Most importantly, I learned that the truth, once properly presented, cannot be denied. If there is one enduring takeaway, it is that reclaiming your life after someone tries to manipulate it is not about revenge. It is about freedom, clarity, and agency. Ariana's choices shaped my pain, but they never shaped my destiny. I built that myself, piece by piece, proof by proof, moment by moment. And in that reconstruction, I discovered something more valuable than victory. I discovered freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from doubt, freedom to live authentically and confidently, knowing that my life was truly my own.